To a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
11 and 12. I know you're going to get Mafia excited here. Hot and bothered.
You got to put Aaron Rodgers here and the Jets at 11. I would put him higher, but again, he barely played football last season. They've addressed their offensive line. It's not going to be great. The depth at wide receiver is a problem for me. Defense, perhaps the best in the National Football League. If Rodgers plays 14 games, they're probably going to win that division over the Bills.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Rory Mack, it's going to be remembered. It will be a lasting image from the 2024 United States Open, just like Bryson DeChambeau's 55-yard bunker shot.
We love big-time winners. Like, you win a championship, we want to hear from you. You get the stage. Sometimes it's emotional. It's a great watch. We know we also love the losers who said, you know what, I just can't believe I folded down the stretch. Let me face the music here. You sort of get a new light there.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Hello and welcome to a Tuesday Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. A Tuesday looking back on a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final. A sentence alone that should spike your heart rate, as we saw last night in Sunrise, and for the first time in franchise history, a franchise that is just 30 years old, the Panthers hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. Everything that happened in Game 7 last night, what it means for this NHL season and beyond, and so much more. Around the Major League Baseball diamond, around the college baseball diamond, a decisive Game 3 last night in Omaha at the Men's College World Series between Tennessee and Texas A&M, with both programs looking for their first ever national championship. It's a jam-packed Tuesday here on TEL.
Absolutely it is. I was able to stay up at least to see it 2-1, and the game ended 2-1. Caught the highlights this morning, but it must be fantastic to be in the building when Lord Stanley's Cup is handed out, which it was yesterday in Sunrise, Florida. So it was a fun watch and a great NHL season as we now sort of focus our attention on Major League Baseball. And also that College World Series started out with a blast right away from the Tennessee Volunteers. Maybe the best team all season long, won that championship there, and deservedly so. It was a good night last night. Championships were awarded there, Ben.
They absolutely were. The number one national seed in Tennessee victorious, and the team at home in Sunrise after winning 3 to start the Stanley Cup Final in a row and then dropping 3 consecutive games. They prevail in the 7th and final. For the first time in franchise history, a franchise that began play in the National Hockey League in the 1993-94 season exactly 3 decades ago, the Florida Panthers are a Stanley Cup champion. 2-1 the victory last night in Sunrise for the Panthers. A game DRS that was a dead even pick'em in a winner-take-all Game 7. -110 on the money line for both Florida and Edmonton. And last night was the 18th all-time Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final in like 16 prior and now make it 17. The game stays under 5.5. The under had the hefty juice, and it stays under. Sergei Bobrovsky, sensational once again, bookending the Stanley Cup final. And when I saw Donnie Rightside tweet out Sam Reinhart's game-winning goal in the second period, my first thought was, ooh, that might be the clincher for the Panthers. And secondly, Donnie's still up. He was, to see the Panthers win a Stanley Cup for the first time ever.
Yeah, I don't know who you were following last night, but I'm not so sure I actually tweeted the second goal out. But I did tweet in the first period when that game was rocking and rolling at 1-1. It was an entertaining game right off the bat. And if anybody was watching first 5-6 minutes of that first period, you thought you might be getting into a 6-5 final and maybe even into an overtime game. But that third period, I was watching the highlights, had it all. And you want to talk about Bobrovsky coming up big in some big moments? He absolutely did that, including the fantastic defense by the Florida Panthers, blocking shot after shot, even before getting to Bobrovsky. A awesome NHL final series here, which goes to 7 games. The only thing we were hoping for, Ben, probably a little overtime action, which we were close on, but you do have to sell. That was a very good regular season team with an unbelievable run here and hanging on at the end, because there was a lot of, whoo, we won the Stanley Cup. But then when you realize they won it, the party was on down there in South Florida.
So, Donnie, maybe it wasn't in the second period, but even the first, I was astounded that you were still awake. Yeah. But that's what happens when you have to witness a Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final. 24 shots faced by the man known as Bob last night. He saved 23 of them. Sergei Bobrovsky, Carter Verhaeghe, a goal and an assist, and Sam Reinhart will be remembered in Florida history forever. The game-winning in the Stanley Cup clinching goal in the second period. And how the game ended, as you heard last night, very fitting for the physical style of play that Florida relies on. The puck in the corner as the clock winded down toward 0. 3 of the 4 wins for the Panthers stay under a total, and the Panthers a Stanley Cup champ. The Oilers were looking for their first Stanley Cup since 1990. The nation of Canada, the Great White North and the home of hockey, looking for its first Stanley Cup in 31 years. Those droughts will continue, but despite a losing effort for Edmonton, Connor McDavid, after a historic postseason run, still wins the Conn Smythe Award, becoming just the second skater in the history of the Stanley Cup playoffs to win the Conn Smythe, the postseason MVP, on the losing side of the Stanley Cup final, joining Donnie's Philadelphia Flyers legend Reggie Leach back in 1976.
Yeah, Connor McDavid was absolutely fantastic throughout this playoff run. He just thought maybe he had one more game in him that he could absolutely turn into like a Michael Jordan-type figure of dominating a game number 7. Wasn't able to do that. But also, let me shout out the Edmonton Oilers fans here quickly. It started that game yesterday, Ben, and you heard, like, the tradition in Edmonton is they'll sing the Canadian national anthem. They were so loud here, they forced the American audience to also sing along with Alanis Morissette, which both audiences were faster than the actual singer themselves. So I got a pretty good chuckle out of that. But my goodness, when those first 2 goals went off, you couldn't tell who actually was the home team. It was an awesome environment all the way through at that point. But yes, Connor McDavid certainly deservedly here, even in a losing effort. He was the best player by far throughout these Stanley Cup runs and throughout the playoffs.
42 points recorded for Connor McDavid. That's the 4th most ever in a single Stanley Cup postseason, but held without a point in Game 6 and 7. For the first time, they are partnering on Rocky Top as an NCAA baseball champion. The Tennessee Volunteers win their first national title in program history last night in Omaha in the Men's College World Series in the Game 3 final. 6-5 the final. The Vols victorious. They were booked as a -180 money line favorite for the game. A total of 10.5 somehow gets over. We'll focus on the bad beat component a little bit later on in this opening hour. But the Volunteers victorious, becoming the first #1 national seed to win a national championship since Donnie's Miami Hurricanes back in 1999, the first year ever we used national seeds for the NCAA baseball tournament.
Yeah, hot day out there in Omaha for sure. And that ball was traveling, multiple home runs in that game. Now, granted, you see the 6-5 score. To me, watching bits and pieces of that game, it didn't feel like it was a 6-5 game. It always felt like right off the jump, the Vols were in complete control of that game. But credit Texas A&M for fighting back and at least making it close at the end, where maybe in one base knock here, one base knock there would have tied that game up. But well-deserving championship here for the Tennessee Volunteers, no doubt about it.
The Vols were up 6-1 at the end of 7. The Aggies did play 2 in each the 8th and the 9th. Again, we'll get to that bad beat in a little bit. History yesterday on the MLB Diamond. The first 1-3-5 triple play in Major League Baseball since 1929. It's what the Phillies turned yesterday in a big win in Detroit over the Tigers, 8-1. And outside of the triple play, 5 ribbies for Bryce Harper, 3 RBIs for Alec Boehm. The Philadelphia Phillies get a big win on the road.
Yeah, how about this, too? Like, Casey Mize has 10 strikeouts in under 5 innings pitched. You figured he would absolutely was mowing down the Philadelphia Phillies, but the Phillies end up with 15 hits and 8 runs, which includes Bryce Harper having a banner day, 5 RBI, now hitting over 300. He's welcomed himself right into that MVP race with Shohei Ohtani now, but also that was an interesting triple play, which sometimes say, well, why does that happen in basically 100 years? Well, some of the runners have to not be paying attention at all and just figure like, base hit up the middle, I'm just going to run home at this point. It was interesting to watch it play out, but that was a really key instance in this game when you could have had, let's just say, a base hit for Detroit there, get them back into that game. Triple play took it all out of the air. Phillies won easily yesterday against the Tigers.
Quickly here, the Red Sox stay red hot. Jarren Duran, a walk-off RBI for the first time in his career. Boston beats the Blue Jays 7-6.
Yeah, I like that Boston Red Sox team. We'll leave it there.
And we'll go through the final 2 very quickly. Scotty Barnes intends to sign a 5-year, $270 million rookie max extension with the Toronto Raptors. Donnie shares his thoughts. And in the soccer, Donnie's favorite sport, Italy and Spain advance in the Euros.
Goal.
The Italians at the death. Brazil draws its opener against Costa Rica to start Copa America. We're fired up. More TEL next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
The bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He went bogey, double, par, birdie, bogey. Thomas Dietrich's all over the place here today.
This golf course is so volatile where it can make you look like a fool in just a matter of minutes. And, you look at a guy like Thomas Dietrich. He's right there tied for the lead or whatever it was, and now he's like 4 or 5 over in the wink of an eye.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Around MLB from a Monday that featured 12 games, and half of the 12 decided by just a single run. A lot of good baseball to break down for you here on this Tuesday morning on the early line. We start with the hottest active team in MLB, featured in one of those one-run games yesterday. The Guardians on the road in Baltimore entered the game in the Charm City on a 5-game win streak, make that 6 in a row for Cleveland. Jose Ramirez, a big day yesterday. A couple of the RBIs of the 3 runs the Guardians scored, including the game-winning solo shot in the 6th inning. 3-2 the victory for the Guardians. They have now won 6 straight games.
And by the way, you're taking a look at the Baltimore Orioles now on the opposite side. They got to get out of their own way right now, stacking up loss after loss after loss. If you want to hang around there with the New York Yankees, you better start winning. Povich on the mound. The young kid now drops to 0-2, but he was okay last night. If you would have told me before the game I'm going to get 5 2/3 innings pitch and 3 earned runs, okay, you're right in this game to win it. It just wasn't enough. And by the way, Bybee, sensational yesterday. Goes on the road against one of the better hitting teams in Major League Baseball. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, only 1 earned run, and 7 Ks through 96 pitches. That'll get the job done, handing it over to a very good bullpen that they have. Again, we talk about the Guardians of what they've done this year. 50 wins now on the season. That is absolutely tremendous. But I'm sort of watching now the Orioles. It's a long season. You go through great win streaks sometimes. Sometimes you go on a losing streak. The Orioles are on one right now. Let's see if they can get out of their own way. But another great win for the Guardians on the road. And again, Bybee was sensational, improving to 6-2.
The O's swept this weekend by the Houston Astros. That was uncharacteristic, at least for this 2024 MLB campaign. So now 4 straight losses for Baltimore. The winner of yesterday's game was going to get to the 50-win benchmark, joining the Yankees and the Phils as the other 2 teams across MLB to win at least 50 games this year. It's the Cleveland Guardians. Again, the hottest active team in Major League Baseball, the longest active win streak, make it 6 in a row, and a .658 win percentage, 50-26, the record for the Guardians. That's the best win percentage in all of the American League. Baltimore now, because they have dropped 4 straight, 49-29, third best record in the AL, 2 games behind the New York Yankees within the American League East. And Donnie, as we have discussed, Cleveland has an 8-game lead in the American League Central. They'll be pushed, I'm sure, at points this summer and into September by the Minnesota Twins and the Kansas City Royals, but a very comfortable margin here nearing the end of June. So it's not necessarily what will the Guardians do in the AL Central race the remainder of the regular season, but how do they position themselves for a playoff run, and what can a team out of the Central do come postseason baseball?
Yeah, you have to add on. And every once in a while you take a look at it. It's really sometimes both of these central divisions. Like outside of, let's just say, the, Chicago Cubs, who should be operating like the New York Yankees, but sort of been able to hide in the Central here with the other teams. Like, we don't have to make changes. We sell it every night. We just, fill our coffers with money. The interesting part about the Guardians is it doesn't come around often where you say to yourself, the Guardians are a team from the Central, are one of the best, if not the best teams in baseball. Let's just take a look. 50 wins will put you in that conversation, but it's also how they handle themselves, because Cleveland will operate as a smaller market. They can't afford to go out and pay the top 2 pitchers on the market at the deadline, inherit all of that salary, and give up prospects here into the future just for one chance at a championship, when technically that's really the way you should operate. You're supposed to set yourself up, let's just say, once every 5 to 6 years for a deep playoff run. That's when you go all in. And that's what the hope for me is, that the Guardians understand that they have a legitimate chance to win the pennant in the American League, therefore make those appropriate adjustments. And I've said it many, many times. It's a shame that the Guardians are actually 8 games over Minnesota. You say, well, why would you say that? Because it just forces the hand of the ownership group to say, look, if we want to win this division, we're going to have to add on pieces. You might get to the point where we get to the All-Star game and the Guardians have a 10-plus game lead here. By the time we get there, they go, you know what? We're good. We obviously have a good team, and we'll see what happens in the playoffs. You can't do that. Can't rest on your laurels. That's the only thing I worry about right now with the Guardians, even though I love what I see out of them.
The Guardians, that 4th best price to win the pennant in the American League at +750 behind the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Seattle Mariners at this moment. That 8-game advantage in the AL Central, -240 the price for Cleveland to win the division. Not the heftiest juice for a team that has an 8-game advantage nearing the end of June, and not all that far away from the All-Star break. Now we go elsewhere around MLB. Cleveland has the longest active win streak, 6 victories in a row. But the Red Sox also right there with the Guardians as one of the hottest teams in the bigs. Make that 8 wins in their last 9 games in walk-off fashion last night in Fenway. Jarren Duran, RBI winner for Boston. His first career walk-off. The Celtics on their championship tour were there last night, and they got to see the Red Sox walk it off. Boston takes the opener of this AL East divisional duel to start this week.
Yeah, how about that? 5 unanswered runs in the bottom of the 8th inning and the bottom of the 9th inning to win this one. 11 total hits. I really like this team. And by the way, Boston right now, that's a playoff team. They're getting great starting pitching, quality bullpen work, but also the young talent is really showing up. A lot of these guys, you probably didn't even know their name on opening day. I love the top 4 in that lineup. Duran, Hamilton, Abreu, and Devers doing damage on a night-to-night basis here because you have that great combination of speed and power at the top of that lineup because once you get on the bases, the worst pitcher and catcher's worst nightmare is you are running to second base, you're running to third base, you're creating a commotion, and also those guys are hitting for average, 293, 282, 264, 282. I really like what I see out of the Boston Red Sox. Again, a really fun team to bet. If it's an RBI prop, if it's a base stealing prop, any way you want to play it, that lineup is delivering and also getting quality pitching on a day-to-day basis here. Look, Boston's going to make the playoffs. I believe that.
3 of their top 4 hitters yesterday, including Jarren Duran, and then David Hamilton in the 2-hole and Rafi Devers in that cleanup spot. 2 RBIs out of both Hamilton and Devers in a game-winning ribby from Jarren Duran. And Tanner Houck, not bad, the ace of the staff for the Red Sox. So all 3 of these games that we discuss decided by a single run. Again, 12 yesterday on the Monday card, 6 decided by a single run, including the Rays. A 4-3 victory. Tampa scored 2 in the bottom of the 8th to pick up the win over Seattle.
Taj Bradley, terrible on the road, sensational at home. 5 1/3 innings pitched, only 1 earned run. But sometimes if I thought Tampa Bay was going to win that game, and I did, better to be lucky than good. Needed a late comeback in order to get it done, but they did. And how about this? Tampa Bay, 1 game under 500 now. We'll see what they can do.
The Mariners have dropped 5 of their last 6. We'll keep going around MLB up next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
The bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He went bogey, double, par, birdie, bogey. Thomas Dietrich's all over the place here today.
This golf course is so volatile where it can make you look like a fool in just a matter of minutes. And, you know, you look at a guy like Thomas Dietrich. You know, he's right there tied for the lead or whatever it was, and now he's like 4 or 5 over in the wink of an eye.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
On paper, if I were to tell you the LA Dodgers, even on the road in Chicago, knocked off the White Sox by a final score of 3-0, you would say, yeah, okay. But yesterday, the odds did not really anticipate an easy victory for LA. Of course, they were booked as a favorite, and they've only been booked as an underdog less than a handful of times this season, but it was only minus 120. Closing money line in favor of LA, with James Paxton getting the start for the Dodgers and Garrett Crochet, who's been sensational for the Sox all year, getting the start for Chicago. Some weather caused a delay, but LA wins 3-0 to open up their midweek set over the White Sox. Chicago remains the worst team in MLB, only 21 wins. The Dodgers now a single victory away from getting to the 50-win benchmark.
Yeah, you just take a look at the betting, lines on this game per se, right? You saw the full game. The Dodgers were the favorite, but it was almost a reversal in that first 5 innings, which is the way I bet this game. I wanted Crochet to go toe-to-toe with Paxton, a guy that's been dominant, particularly at home, in Crochet against a guy in Paxton who does have good numbers with an ERA of 3.39, but struggling in those analytical terms like xFIP numbers, and I thought they would be able to get some base hits. Chicago wasn't able to do that, but at the end of 5 innings, it was 0-0, so you got to push back on that. Late in the game, you figure the Dodgers bullpen is better than the White Sox, better players. Eventually, they're going to be able to break through. And they did that. That's what good teams like the Dodgers are supposed to do, beat bad teams like the Chicago White Sox. But it always is interesting to see because midday yesterday, let's just say the Dodgers were as high as like a minus 135 favorite, but on the first 5 line, Crochet was like a minus 125 favorite. That's very rare to see that. And it played out almost exactly the way the odds makers thought. Better pitch in the first 5 innings, Chicago, but nobody got any base hits. Better team overall. The Dodgers will make them the favorite for the game. They pick up the victory yesterday. Good win by the Dodgers, shut out of the White Sox. That's what you're supposed to do.
5 2/3 out of Crochet, only 5 base knocks allowed, 0 earned runs, 6 Ks. 6-6 this year with a 3.05 ERA. He's been incredible. Those 6 wins, by the way, since the month of May, the White Sox have actually won 6 of his 10 starts that he's made since May began, just not the most recent 2. And for a team that only has 21 wins, 6 of them coming with Garrett Crochet on the bump, goes to show how good he has been this year. Shohei Ohtani did add some insurance in the 9th, a sac fly RBI. He's batting .318 this year. Donnie, a new market has emerged. Shohei Ohtani versus the field. To win the NL MVP, minus 120 for Ohtani, minus 102 for everybody else. In the outright MVP odds in the National League, minus 125 for Ohtani, plus 190 for Bryce Harper. And that leads us into our next conversation. The Phils yesterday, a hefty road favorite on the road in the Motor City, and they made good on that minus 180 moneyline price, victorious by a final score of 8-1. Bryce Harper, one of the main reasons why. 5 ribbies yesterday for the Phils. Aaron Nola great. Alec Boehm adds on 3 RBIs. And as we shared, the first 1-3-5 triple play recorded since 1929 in Major League Baseball. The Phils take the opener in Detroit.
Yeah, Boehm now 64 RBI on the season. You take a look at Bryce Harper at 56. Also, the Phillies went 5 of 14 with runners in scoring position and left 12 guys on base and still scored 8 times. Here's the interesting part. Do we expect the Phillies to win yesterday with Nola on the mound? Probably so. Did the Phillies strike out sometimes a little bit too much? Yes, they do. But they do got some power in the middle of that lineup. And also, talking about that MVP market, I wouldn't bet anybody else. I wouldn't take any field. It's going to be Ohtani or it's going to be Harper. Here's the interesting thing. Harper now starting to hit that gas pedal, closing that gap on Ohtani. The one thing to watch it play out is that bias, and rightfully so, that Major League Baseball writers will have against a guy who's just a DH versus a guy who's playing the field and hitting well at the plate. So for my money right now, and it's not a homer pick, because I don't know, hey, Harper's going to be MVP all season long. I'm just looking at what typically happens here. If these two guys are close in numbers by the end of the season, Harper's going to be the MVP because he's going to get the bonus. Now, granted, if Ohtani was still on the mound and only pitching every 5th day and not playing the field at all, he would obviously be in the driver's seat. Right. But I know that stigma that they have saying, you know what, I don't know if I want to give it just to a DH. They'll look around for the next best option. And if Harper's over 300 with 40-plus home runs, 120-plus RBI, he's going to win the MVP.
I am not a Philadelphia homer, but Donnie's assessment is spot on, especially from a betting perspective. Yes, anybody could emerge in July, August to win the NL MVP, and injury is a huge component, as we saw Mookie Betts virtually eliminated from this race. But Bryce Harper right now has that value at plus 190 as opposed to betting the field for anything else. By the way, yesterday, the Cardinals a victory over the Atlanta Braves as a home underdog under the arch. 4 straight wins for St. Louis. They scored all 4 of their runs in the third and then held on the rest of the way. St. Louis has won 9 of their last 12. The Braves still victorious in 8 of their last 11. A breakdown from Game 7 of the Stanley Cup next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He went bogey, double, par, birdie, bogey. Thomas Dietrich's all over the place here today.
This golf course is so volatile where it can make you look like a fool in just a matter of minutes. And, you look at a guy like Thomas Dietrich. He's right there tied for the lead or whatever it was, and now he's like 4 or 5 over in the wink of an eye.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How is the Sunshine State feeling after Stanley Cup Final Game number 7? You'll find out right now as Kasey Hudson joins us bright and early on this Tuesday morning on the early line down there in Florida. Not exactly in Sunrise, but still happy for those Florida Panthers, I would presume, after a Game 7 victory last night. To recap everything we saw in the 7th and final game of a wild Stanley Cup Final and what it means around the National Hockey League, Kasey is here on this Tuesday. Kasey, as always, thank you so much. I know I speak on behalf of all of us here and Donnie. Nobody better that we could hope for to talk about the final day of the NHL season than Kasey Hudson.
Oh, you guys flatter me, but I would wake up early for no one other than you two, especially after hockey paradise continues to thrive.
Absolutely so. So, Kasey, looking back on game number 7, an electric atmosphere in Sunrise. Tons of Oilers fans. The first 7 minutes of the game, the two clubs exchanged goals, and then things slowed down a little bit. Sam Reinhart, though, scoring in the second period early on, and that was the game winner and the Stanley Cup clincher. For the first time in franchise history, the Florida Panthers hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. 2-1 the final in game number 7. Kasey, what will you remember most from the 7th game of this 2024 Stanley Cup Final?
One of the things I'm going to remember most is just some of the massive saves that Bob came up with, but how the team or the defense collectively came in front of him. We saw one of those scrambles last night in the third period where you've got like 3 Panther sweaters in the crease. Bob is on the outside sliding around, lost his stick on the opposite side. It's those moments that help you pull through and win these massive games and win the most important game and host the most important trophy. But, of course, the conversation is going to go around going up 3-0 in the series, almost completely blowing your chance to hoist the cup. The Oilers bouncing back and making history in a numerical amount of ways. So there's a lot to take from this Stanley Cup. But the best part about it is how many new fans it brought into the sport and how many viewers it brought in from all the way down in South Florida up to Alberta. So it's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to remember.
It's crazy that, one of these states that, I guess the southernmost state in Florida, hockey dynasties, it seemed like they being here with the Tampa Bay, run that they've had in the past. Now Florida's winning Stanley Cups. Edmonton and Canada can't win any here. But I love the pageantry here, Kasey, of game number 7. It's one of those things where I like to tune in and almost like the first half hour of the game before it even starts, as opposed to the game itself. I thought the crowd was electric. I was so impressed by the Edmonton Oilers fan base flying all that way down. And sometimes I couldn't tell who actually had the home game yesterday. But talk to me about this. Paul Maurice, he's been a hockey coach for a long time, but now taking center stage. I really enjoy his press conferences here. It looks like he was calm, cool, and collected, even though his team was up 3-0. Then it was 3-1, 3-2, 3-3. Never shifted here. Talk to me about Paul Maurice finally winning a Stanley Cup here and what it means to him.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine how emotional he's going to wake up today and hungover. But 30 years, I mean, if you pay attention to some of the press conferences Paul Maurice has had in probably the last 5-6 seasons, there was a moment there where his career he was about to call it. He was going to just kind of let it be what it was and retire, go fishing. That was one of the questions after he obviously won the cup last night. But he's such a humble person, and he's somebody that really cares about his players. He is a player's coach. So This means a lot for him because he was able to pull through for guys who, as he mentioned, you don't see much emotion out of. He said he saw Sam Bennett smile for the first time in 2 years. I can't imagine coaching a guy like that. So he's weathering so many emotions. He's keeping so many different personalities focused and hopeful and engaged. And I think that it means a lot for him to be able to do that for his players. But a lot of shout outs to his mom and dad. The fact that you get so close to calling it a career and now you get to lift a Stanley Cup and the first one for a franchise. There's just a multitude of things that emphasize what Paul Maurice did, not only for the team, but for the community down in South Florida, Florida as a whole. And hockey's only going to get better if the U.S. continues to buy in. And that starts in the South. And he's a huge imprint of that. So he's been tremendous. Best press conferences. He's very transparent. And the fact that he said we're taking this to a game 7 in the beginning, he already knew what his team was capable of and what this roller coaster was going to consist of. And I think because he said that in the beginning, because he had that confidence and that poise in the beginning, they got to a game 7, they got back to their form, and now they're Stanley Cup champions.
Kasey, an awesome moment that kind of encapsulated all of that emotion in one. When Paul Maurice was on camera with the ESPN broadcast when he was handed the Stanley Cup for the first time and said it was almost fitting that this went to 7 games because they had to lose 3 to learn how to win 4. It has not been easy for the Panthers the last 2 years, despite getting to their second consecutive Stanley Cup final. Now, of course, after every hockey game, they hand out the 3 stars, where star number 1, the 1 star, is given to the game's best performer. Who would you have given that number 1 star to last night after the Panthers were victorious in Game 7?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm going to just go for Carter Verhaeghe, not because he picked up the goal, but it's the fact that your key players have to show up in those key moments. And Verhaeghe hadn't scored since Game 1. And not to mention is that a team that was pretty consistent in at least picking up 1 goal in the first period went on a bit of a drought there. So Carter Verhaeghe not only, broke the drought, but he got back to rare form, which is picking up those really crucial goals. And it was a beautiful deflection that he was able to get himself involved in. So I do want to give that to him because that was a tone setter. Even though the Oilers responded in the same fashion they typically did, on a breakaway, kind of not having any more pressure on them aside from the speed and the momentum that they created in that moment. But, Carter Verhaeghe got that crucial goal to get them going. So he would kind of be my first star. But outside of that, Barkov, I know they're talking about him, but we're still not talking about him enough. The matchups that he's gone in every single round, his crucial role, the amount of goals that he has limited in general. If it was not for Barkov, we cannot say the Florida Panthers would be here today.
Yeah, Kasey, looking at that first goal by Verhaeghe, boy, did they need that too. Got the building going, even though it ended up 1-1 at the end of the first period. Just getting that first one here, not being down, had to be great for them. But if you take a look at the Florida Panthers as a season here, 11th in the standings, I should say the odds market to open the season at a at 20-1. All-Star break plus 950, entering the playoffs 7-1, and then entering into the final at a minus 134. They were sensational all the way through and got better as it went along. But the focus I want to see here is Connor McDavid. We know he's one of the greats in the game, and what an unbelievable story to tell if they were down 0-3 and he puts the Oilers in that city and Canada on his back to win a game number 7 and a Stanley Cup. It didn't happen. So taking a look forward at Connor McDavid, he was sensational once again here. What's the future for him and also the future for the Edmonton Oilers?
I feel like Connor McDavid has said it a number of times, and we can see his humility through his press conferences and his demeanor. He has no intention of bailing on the Oilers. And maybe getting this much closer is going to be that much more impactful and powerful for a guy like Connor McDavid, which is very scary. They went through a coaching change. They were very slow out the gate for this season. He's been battling a number of injuries. So it's not like the Oilers failed him or he failed the Oilers. With everything they had to overcome this season, to make it to a Stanley Cup final was impeccable. So I think that they have probably one of the best motivations heading into next season. They don't have a bunch of cap space issues, so they have a good core to just continue to build around. We saw some good depth from younger guys getting involved, so they just have minor adjustments to make where they can, alleviate Connor McDavid a little bit and let him flourish at the right time of the season. That head coach and him obviously have chemistry. They've worked together previously in his career, and I think that's just going to play a larger role in what's to come in the upcoming season. But for him to even keep his team in this, those crucial 8 points that he picked up in games 4 and 5, he's just going to continue to try to throw the Oilers on his shoulder and pull them through the finish line to hoist the cup. And in the next year or two, he could potentially do that very much so.
You saw the odds right there. Edmonton tied for the fourth best price at 10-1 to win next year's Stanley Cup. This was the first appearance for the Oilers in a Stanley Cup final since 2006, the first in Connor McDavid's career. And despite winning the Conn Smythe in a losing effort, a historic postseason, fourth most points recorded in a single playoff run with 42. Kasey Hudson, thank you for everything all NHL season long. We appreciate your time always. More on the early line comes your way up next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He went bogey, double, par, birdie, bogey. Thomas Dietrich's all over the place here today.
This golf course is so volatile where it can make you look like a fool in just a matter of minutes. And, you look at a guy like Thomas Dietrich. He's right there tied for the lead or whatever it was, and now he's like 4 or 5 over in the wink of an eye.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The NBA offseason, the summer never not with drama in the National Basketball Association, and we break it down here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. Yesterday in LA, the new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers introduced. That was J.J. Redick. He had plenty to say. He dropped an F-bomb. He was asked about Dan Hurley. He was asked about his conversations with LeBron throughout this coaching search. And in fact, DRS, about their podcast, the Mind the Game podcast. Would it continue in season with LeBron James and his head coach, J.J. Redick? Redick shared his thoughts.
I am, for the time being, and hopefully it's a very, very long time, I am excommunicated from the content space, so there would be no podcast. We'll do something when I have a breather from what we have coming up. I'm going to be drinking out of a fire hose for the next month, but at some point we'll just do something for all the people that listened, and we'll have a small little video. But I'm done with podcasting for now.
Listen, podcasting can get you an NBA head coaching job. They take the early line every day and put it into a podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. Maybe we're in line next, but DRS, do you buy it? Do you want that podcast from Redick and his star player, LeBron James, next year?
Yes, why not? I mean, opinionated, man. This is what we are now. We want to hear about a bad loss in the locker room, or we want to hear about a good play draw up, or I want to hear J.J. Redick clowning on LeBron James because he couldn't finish at the rim because he's over 40 years old at this point. I think it will be a lot of fun. But honestly, from a business perspective, there's no way that could go on here because too much stuff would leak out, and you got to take things seriously. You know when you can do a podcast with LeBron James? After you win the world championship. People will enjoy that a lot. But the one thing I do know I think I'm going to enjoy here throughout this season is the post-game press conferences with J.J. Redick. He is very, very opinionated on every structure he goes on, doesn't mind speaking the truth, and I can see like a tough loss here early in his NBA coaching career where he might let it fly in that post-game press conference. So I'm intrigued by this overall. By the way, Chad, I think it was the FanDuel Sportsbook yesterday, their Twitter account. You know, they had a picture of J.J. Redick in a suit. It's like, hey, first look at J.J. Redick as a coach. I'm like, yeah, it looks the same as a guy sitting there calling a game. So I got a kick out of that one posted up. Like it wasn't anything different that we're going to watch. But I'm intrigued by this, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, J.J. Redick, by the way, is very groomed in media. J.J. Redick, a very sharp basketball mind, that we know. I appreciated his candor, though, in his first press conference, introductory press conference yesterday in Los Angeles. Not just because he dropped an F-bomb and might be subject to fines by the NBA league office moving forward, but because of the questions about Dan Hurley. And he said, listen, Rob Pelinka was very forthright in everything, very transparent in all of those conversations. And for him, that news dropped on the day of Game 1 where he was calling the 2024 NBA Finals. But it was an understandable thing for J.J. Redick. Dan Hurley's won 2 consecutive national championships, and J.J. Redick made fun of himself for his only coaching experience being elementary school basketball in Brooklyn. So J.J. Redick is understanding of what he walks into. Of course, now the next big pictures for the Lakers. Starting tomorrow, 2024 NBA Draft. What will they do at number 17 overall? And, of course, maybe even more intent and focus on night number 2 and what happens with Bronny James. What does that mean for LeBron James's future, who is also a free agent as he opted out of his player option for this upcoming season? The idea is, at least the overwhelming thought, is that LeBron is going to re-sign in Los Angeles just with a restructured deal, but still some things to iron out for the Lakers.
No doubt about it. And also, shout out to J.J. Redick because he knew some of the questions coming in, and I do respect the ability to be able to lie and keep a straight face. Hey, by the way, did you ever talk – I haven't talked to LeBron James in months, man. Maybe 5-10 minutes at this point. You know damn well he was calling LeBron every day. Did you speak with Rob today? What did Rob have to say? Did he say any good things about me? Hey, by the way, did you have breakfast with Jeannie Buss? What did she have to say about me? Can he put in a good word for me as a head coach? You know that was going on here. So stop the madness of, well, J.J. Redick, just an independent coach here, had no attachment to the team whatsoever, knowing you better have the blessing of LeBron James to be the next head coach or else he's not staying in Los Angeles. But I understand from his perspective was, look, I can't come to a press conference and be like, yeah, LeBron basically was like, you need to be my head coach and pulled all the strings behind the scenes so I could be the head coach. We knew it wasn't going there, but I do appreciate I don't really talk to LeBron James at all here. Shout out to that one.
And DRS, for the first time really in the LeBron James, Anthony Davis, LA Laker era, they are not one of the 5 best priced teams to win the Western Conference in the preseason. They have struggled to stack up those odds throughout a regular season, but right now tied for the 7th best price at 20-1 with many other teams around the West. Now we go to the Eastern Conference, and the cornerstone of the Raptors franchise now, and for many years to come at least, expected. Scotty Barnes intends to sign a 5-year, $270 million rookie max extension to stay in Toronto and become the highest paid player in the history of this Raptors franchise. When we were breaking things down very quickly in our opening segment in that 7 in 7, I think you said overpaid. Do you feel that way about Scotty Barnes?
Well, just about everybody's going to be overpaid in the NBA with that new money coming in here, but it's just shocking when you see it first here with some of these first contracts coming through. Like a very good basketball player, I'm not doubting his skills at all, on a very bad basketball team gets that bag. It's almost like you would expect this to be on the Boston Celtics. Like, hey, Tatum's going to get 5 for $270. Yeah, it makes some sense. He just won the championship. They're a great basketball team. Jaylen Brown makes a ton of money. That's when you want to go all in as a franchise. I understand he's a building block towards the future there, but it's just astounding to see that, like, wow, this guy's 5 years, $270 on a bad basketball team at this point. So we'll see what they do in the future at this point. Again, very good player, but this money is going to be out of pocket over the next 2 to 3 seasons, which guys are going to be like, what? He makes how much?
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
We said the same thing with Jaylen Brown's record-setting contract last year. Jason Tatum expected to eclipse that number when the offseason officially gets underway for the NBA. But Scotty Barnes, an all-star this past season for the Raptors, averaging nearly 20 points per game, more than 8 boards and 6 dimes throughout this season. The rightful cornerstone of a Raptors franchise, very much in transition, of course, after trading Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby during the regular season this past year. Pascal in Indiana signing that big max extension. We'll see what OG Anunoby does this offseason as well. So we'll have some NBA draft discussions to start our second hour, but to end out this opening hour for one final night, we go to Omaha, Nebraska. Up next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He went bogey, double, par, birdie, bogey. Thomas Dietrich's all over the place here today.
This golf course is so volatile where it can make you look like a fool in just a matter of minutes. And, you look at a guy like Thomas Dietrich. He's right there tied for the lead or whatever it was, and now he's like 4 or 5 over in the wink of an eye.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong. This is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Not just a winner-take-all Game 7 in the 2024 Stanley Cup Final, but a decisive winner-take-all Game 3 in the Men's College World Series championship set between Tennessee and Texas A&M, two SEC foes both battling for their first national championship in program history. The Vols last made the CWS Finals prior to this year back in 1951. A&M had never reached the championship set in Omaha. So much on the line last night in Omaha, Nebraska, and it ends with a Volunteer victory. Tennessee holds on late 6-5 to win its first ever national title. So many historic trends coming to a head last night. Tennessee, the first #1 national seed to win a national championship since the very first year of this national seeding format back in 1999 when the Miami Hurricanes stood atop the mountaintop in college baseball. Now it's standing atop Rocky Top for Tennessee. 5 years under Tony Vitello, they're in Knoxville. They have made the NCAA tournament every single year. Back-to-back appearances in Omaha in the College World Series, reaching the CWS in 3 of the past 4 seasons. But prior to Tony Vitello taking the reins, DRS, in Knoxville, this proud Volunteers baseball program had missed not just the CWS, but the NCAA tournament 13 consecutive years. From that, in a 5-year span, to now being crowned a national champ for the first time in program history, give Tony Vitello all the flowers he deserves.
No, absolutely. And also, you take a look at the SEC total here, like back in the day, just a football conference. And now they're a baseball conference and now playing sensational college basketball as well. What a job they've done. And also, just by taking a look at who actually made the College World Series, you see that strong influence from the SEC in an all-SEC final. But also, here's what you like. We saw it yesterday in the NHL game. You're the home team here. You think you're the better team, right? You get out to the lead first. Don't leave any options, because I understand the Edmonton Oilers tied up that game, but just the emotions of getting that first goal. Okay, we're in it here. Let's play some good hockey. That was a championship. Same thing with Tennessee yesterday, Ben. What do you want to do in that first inning? How about go deep early to get us a 1-0 lead, take all that pressure off? It's okay. Let's settle in. We're the better team. Let's win this. And they did that. That's what I was most impressed with yesterday. And boy, it was hot out there. That environment was lively. The crowd was into it early. You just wanted to say, okay, let's get ourselves out to a lead. Even though in the end, it got really close there, and a solo home run would have sent this to extra innings. I really enjoyed that game, specifically watching some of the highlights late in there, because I was watching early. Wow, all right, Tennessee's in it to win it, and they end up winning the game.
It was huge for Tennessee, and a slide that happened in the bottom of the 7th when the Vols added what we thought was just insurance, scoring 3 runs. Hunter Ensley getting around the catcher for A&M and tapping the plate with his right hand in an acrobatic move. It was just super cool to see, one of the best baseball slides you will ever see. It ended up being the game-winning and national championship clinching run for the Volunteers. Again, the first #1 national seed since 1999 to win a national title. Now, just from the betting perspective, Tennessee was the favorite entering Omaha. They were a -180 favorite for the decisive Game 3 last night. Total was 10.5. The Vols were up 6-1 at the end of the 7th. My best bet yesterday, under 10.5 runs. Felt pretty comfortable with where things stood in the final 2 innings. Now we go to the top of the 9th. Texas A&M scores a run, 6-4 ball game. All the insurance off the board. Then A&M has a runner on first. He is allowed to take second base on a stolen base, but uncontested, because they don't care about that run. A balk sends the runner to third, and then a wild pitch on a 1-2 count, on an 0-2 count rather, scores that 5th run for the Aggies. Total goes over very next pitch. The game clinching and national championship clinching strike 3. A bad beat to end it, but not if you bet the Volunteers early. A +230 price before the College World Series began in the Big O.
Yeah, tough scene. Hey, it happens sometimes that way, and you're just trying to hold on. But let me play out this scenario for you, Ben, right?
Please.
You're in Omaha yesterday. It's like, what was the temperature? 100, 103 degrees, 104 degrees at first pitch here. If you were playing this in a city like Miami, dome stadium, air conditioning, fans going crazy.
Cut his mic.
Hold on. Hear me
Miami
out
always,
here.
of course, South Florida, very well known
win
for
that game,
very calm
and
weather.
you go right to South Beach with the kids. You go to Mango's, you hang out, you get
go
all the
right
pictures.
to Rocco's and you have some Jello shots. You go to Platt, right outside the stadium to the rooftop and have a great time.
There's no bars
By the
open.
way, as we
They got blue
focus
light laws.
on the
11
greatness,
they're
Dylan
closed.
Dreiling
Blue
hit
light
a
law.
home run in all 3 games in the CWS Finals for Tennessee, including in that 7th inning. Christian Moore leading off the game with a home run. Hour 2 is up next.